Fear has many faces. Most of the ones that we know are the dramatic ones, the one that send us running and screaming because we're scared. But there's also the visceral ones, the ones that make our body react, like the fear of heights. I know that one well. I know it really well. But there's another kind of fear. There is subtle fear that is in every decision that we make during a day. It's hidden. It's hard to notice and hard to recognize. But when you add up all the choices that we make in fear that are subtle, they can impact our lives in a really, really big way. What do I mean by that? That's what we're talking about today. Subtle fear that impacts our lives. I'm John Coplen, and you're watching Architecting You: How to Design the Life You Want. I am terrified of heights. Terrified. And when I get up somewhere really high, the reaction is visceral for me. My body sweats, my breathing changes, everything to me is flashing red. Fear. It's very easy for me to identify it when it happens. It's easy for me to name that. I am scared of heights. Look at this footage of me taking a balloon ride over Teotihuacan in Mexico. And in the balloon ride, you can clearly see that I am terrified because we are really high, and I'm looking over the edge of the balloon, and obviously there's nothing but this little basket between me and falling to my death. And that's all I can think about. And actually, I'm not joking when I say, like, right now, just like describing that to you, my palms are sweating. That's the level of fear we're talking about. Those kind of fears are really easy to identify because you can't help but to know they're there. But these small, subtle fears that sneak into decisions that we make, these are a little harder to identify because we can't exactly have that flashing red light. Here are just a few examples that I think will help anchor this idea of subtle fear, of how it can sneak into our lives. We don't take that job because we are scared of failure. We don't show up at a party because we have social anxiety and we're scared of that. We don't assert ourselves in an intimate relationship because we feel like they'll reject us if we do. Or we avoid intimacy altogether because we don't want to be vulnerable. All of these reasons seem small, but if you think about it, if that job that you didn't take ends up being the job that propels your career to the next level, and you didn't take it because you're scared, that small decision, that small subtle fear just impacted your life in a huge way. So how do we identify them? And that is the big thing. Once we name a fear, we have many options about how to choose to deal with it. But naming it is typically the very difficult part for these subtle fears. I can give you 4 categories that every time one of these categories is hit in your life, I promise you fear is there. Subtle fear is driving you in a direction. Procrastination. Procrastination is 100% fear. You're either scared that you're not going to do it perfectly, or it's not going to work out, or whatever it is, there is some sort of fear that's keeping you from doing this thing. Maybe it's the social anxiety, so you're procrastinating going to the party. Whatever it is, when you procrastinate, there's fear there, there's subtle fear. 2 is distraction. We all know these folks in our lives who keep themselves so busy all of the time, never have a moment to have anything more than distraction. Distraction is a way to avoid fear. Whether you're fear of missing out or fear of intimacy, there is a fear driving that. There is absolutely a fear there. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is something that I've covered on this YouTube channel, and it is absolutely 100% driven by fear. In fact, you can watch the entire video on it, but most perfectionism is scared of being judged, scared of not doing it right, scared of it not working out just how we have it in our minds. And then there's avoidance. If you're avoiding something, it's very clear, and it's a very easy one, right? If we're avoiding walking into a room because we're scared of who's in there, that's fear. If we're avoiding doing not doing something because we are scared of it, like my balloon ride, fear. If I'm avoiding applying for that job because I'm scared that I cannot actually live up to it, that avoidance is fear. It's a really easy one. So you can use these 4 categories to help you identify times when you may have subtle fear that you otherwise would just kind of skirt past. Once we have named a subtle fear, there's a lot of ways we can deal with it. One of the easiest things that I find myself doing is simply talking myself into something, reasoning with myself. If I'm a little nervous to go and approach someone, I have to say to myself, I am just a human talking to a human, and you have to reason with yourself to get past that fear. That works pretty well for me. That works well for a lot of different situations. Another way about it might just be directly going for it, directly putting yourself in the path of something that you fear as a way to expose yourself to it, to attempt to get past it, like me in the balloon ride, terrified, or dealing with social anxiety, putting yourself in social situations on a regular basis until you feel comfortable with it. And third is by just having mindfulness awareness around it. Literally, when the subtle fear comes up, being able to name it. The more you practice that, the more focus you put on it, the quicker you'll be at it. The quicker you'll see, that's just fear, subtle fear, coming right at me. Naming it takes the power away from it and brings it back to you. And when you're in that moment, you'll know what to do. You'll know how to deal with this specific fear. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please hit like and subscribe. If this video is relevant to you or to friends or to family, share it with them. Share it with them or share it on social media. Love to hear back from anyone on comments below. Thank you. None of this is work that anybody can do for you. Only you can get in there and really understand the subtle fear that exists in your life. No one else can do it. So the only way to do this is for you to get out there and make it happen.